morning sun rose over the mining colony of Kepler 402b, casting long shadows across the red dirt and metal buildings. Kiwu Park lay flat on his belly atop a rocky hill, his modified plasma rifle steady against his shoulder. Through the scope, he watched 3 alien transport ships landing near the eastern mining station. The Vorthak had come again. Kiwu had been watching them for 3 days now. The large, gray-skinned aliens moved in predictable patterns. They always sent scouts first, then heavy transport ships, then their raid teams. They thought humans were weak and stupid. They thought wrong. His comm unit buzzed softly. Go 7, this is base. We count 3 transports landing at Mining Station 7. Confirm visual. Kiwu pressed his throat mic. Confirmed base. 3 heavy transports, about 40 hostiles total. They are setting up the same way as last time. Copy that. Colonists are moving to safe zones now. You are clear to engage when ready. Kiwu smiled grimly. The Vorthak had no idea he was here, watching them from over 8 kilometers away. His rifle was a custom build, modified with alien tech he had taken from previous raids. No other human sniper could make shots at this distance. Through his scope, he watched the Vorthak soldiers exit their ships. They wore black armor and carried energy weapons. Their leader was easy to spot. He was bigger than the others and had red markings on his helmet. Kiwu adjusted his scope and checked the wind. The shot would be difficult, but not impossible. He had made harder ones before. The colonists called him Ghost 7 because he appeared and disappeared like smoke. The Vorthak called him something else in their language. It meant the death that comes from nowhere. Kiwu liked that name better. He watched the alien commander point toward the mining facility. The Vorthak soldiers began moving in formation. They would reach the main building in 10 minutes. The colonists needed more time to escape. Kiwu lined up his shot. The plasma bolt traveled 8 kilometers in less than 2 seconds. The Vorthak commander's head simply disappeared. His body fell backward, and the other aliens immediately dropped to the ground, looking around in panic. Kiwu was already moving to his second position before the sound of the shot reached the aliens. He had practiced this route dozens of times. Rock to rock, staying low, using the natural cover of the hill. The Vorthak soldiers were shouting in their harsh language. They fired their weapons wildly at the hill, but Kiwu was already 300 meters away from his first position. He set up behind another boulder and looked through his scope again. The aliens were trying to organize without their leader. A sergeant was waving his arms, pointing at different areas of the hill. Kiwu put a plasma bolt through the sergeant's chest. Now the Vorthak were truly panicking. They had lost 2 leaders in less than a minute, and they still had no idea where the shots were coming from. Some of them ran toward their ships. Others took cover behind rocks and mining equipment. Kiwu moved again. He had 6 more positions prepared on this hill. He could keep moving and shooting all day if needed. From his third position, he could see the mining station clearly. The last of the human colonists were running toward the transport tunnels. Good. In 5 more minutes, they would be safe in the underground bunkers. A Vorthak soldier was setting up a heavy weapon near one of the transports. Kiwu put a shot through the weapon's power cell. The explosion threw the alien 20 meters and damaged the transport ship. The remaining Vorthak soldiers began retreating toward their ships. They had learned not to stand and fight against Ghost 7. Every time they tried, more of them died. Kiwu let them go. His job was to protect the colonists, not to hunt every alien in the system. Though he had to admit he was tempted, his comm unit buzzed. Ghost 7, this is Dr. Hana Cho at the medical station. All colonists are secure. Nice work out there. Kiwu smiled as he began packing his rifle. Hana was the colony's chief medical officer and his closest friend. She also worried about him more than anyone else. Just another day at the office, Doc. How many wounded? None this time. You stopped them before they reached any civilians. But Kiwu, we need to talk. Can you come to the medical station? Kiwu frowned. Hana's voice sounded worried. On my way. The medical station was built into the hillside, protected by thick metal walls and energy shields. Hana was waiting for him at the entrance, her dark hair pulled back and her medical coat stained from a long shift. What's wrong? Kiwoo asked as he entered. Hana led him to her office and closed the door. I intercepted some Vorthak communications during the raid. My translation software is not perfect, but I understand enough. She activated a holographic display showing alien text and audio waveforms. They are not just raiding anymore, Kiwoo. They are hunting you specifically. Kiwoo set down his rifle and studied the display. They have been trying to kill me for 2 years. This is nothing new. No, this is different. Hana pointed to several sections of the communication data. They are calling you by a specific name, not just human sniper or target. They have a designation for you, and they are offering a huge reward. The translation software converted the alien speech into human words. The ghost of Kepler 442b must be eliminated. All resources are authorized, capture or kill. Priority Alpha. Kiwoo sat down heavily. Priority Alpha was the highest threat level in the Vorthak military. They only used it for targets that threatened their entire regional operations. How big is this reward? He asked. Hana's expression was grim. 50,000 standard credits and a promotion to High Commander for whoever kills you. Kiwoo, that is enough money to buy a small warship. Kiwoo was quiet for a long moment. He had known this day would come. Every successful mission made him more valuable as a target. Every dead Vorthak soldier made their leaders angrier. They are going to send more ships, Hana continued. Not just raiders, real military units, maybe even a full battle group. Let them come, Kiwoo said. I have been fighting Vorthak for 3 years. I know their tactics better than they do. Kiwoo, you cannot fight an entire fleet by yourself. We should contact Earth Command, request reinforcements. Kiwoo shook his head. The nearest Earth fleet is 6 months away. These colonists need protection now, not later. Hana grabbed his arm. Then we evacuate, move everyone to a safer system. And let the Vorthak take over? Let them enslave or kill everyone who cannot escape? Kiwoo stood up. No, this is our home now. We fight for it. Through the medical station's window, they could see the mining facilities and the small town that 3,000 humans called home. Children were playing in the streets again now that the danger had passed. Families were returning to their daily lives. Kiwoo picked up his rifle. Besides, I am not done teaching the Vorthak about human determination. As he walked toward the door, Hana called after him. Kiwoo, be careful. The next time they come, it will not be a simple raid. Kiwoo paused at the door. I know, Doc, but they are about to learn something important about humans. We do not surrender. We do not run. And we do not forget. Outside, the afternoon sun was setting behind the mountains. Kiwoo walked toward his quarters to clean his rifle and plan for tomorrow. Somewhere in space, Vorthak commanders were planning their revenge. They could plan all they wanted. Ghost 7 would be waiting. High Commander Thulmek stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue and brown planet below. Kepler 442b looked peaceful from orbit, but Thulmek knew better. Somewhere on that world was the human who had killed over 200 of his soldiers. Commander, all ships are in position, his aide reported. 12 heavy cruisers and 40 escort ships. The human colony cannot escape. Thulmek nodded slowly. He was tall even for a Vorthak, with dark gray skin and bright yellow eyes. Scars covered his arms from dozens of battles. He had never lost a campaign before this human ghost started killing his soldiers. What do we know about their defenses, he asked. The colony has basic shields and a few plasma cannons, nothing that can threaten our fleet. But the sniper, the aide hesitated. He has killed 3 more commanders since we began planning this operation. Thulmek's claws dug into the metal railing. The human was making him look weak in front of his soldiers. That could not continue. Open a channel to all ships, he ordered. Begin orbital bombardment of the agricultural zones. Avoid the main settlement for now. Sir, that violates the Galactic War Conventions. Civilian food supplies are protected. Thulmek turned to face his aide, yellow eyes burning. The humans violated those conventions when they started using a terrorist sniper against our legitimate military operations. We will smoke out this Ghost 7, even if we have to burn every plant on this planet. The first plasma blasts hit the farming areas 30 minutes later. From his position on the hillside, Kiwu watched orange flames spread across the wheat fields. The colonists had worked 3 years to grow those crops. His comm unit was buzzing with emergency calls. Colony Administrator Songmin was trying to coordinate evacuations. Dr. Hana was setting up emergency medical stations. Everyone was scared. "Go 7, this is command," came the voice of Colony Defense Chief Jae Sung. "We need you to take out those bombardment ships." Kiwu studied the alien fleet through his scope. They were too high for his rifle. Even his modified plasma gun could not reach orbital range. "Negative, command. They are staying out of range." This is a siege strategy. More explosions lit up the farming district. The Vorthak were being systematic, burning everything that could not fight back. They were trying to force the humans into smaller and smaller areas. Kiwu's comm unit crackled. With a new voice. It spoke broken but clear human language. "Human sniper. This is High Commander Thulmek of the Vorthak 3rd Fleet. You have cost me many soldiers. Now your people will pay the price." Kiwu keyed his comm. "I am listening, alien. Surrender yourself to my forces and the bombardment stops. Continue hiding and I burn everything on this planet. You have 12 hours to decide." The comm went silent. Kiwu stared at the burning fields. 3,000 innocent people lived on this colony. Families with children, elderly couples who had come here to start new lives, scientists and miners who had never held weapons. He activated his comm. "Hana, where are you?" "Medical Station 3, treating burn victims from the farm district." "Kiwu, there are children here with serious injuries." Kiwu closed his eyes. He had faced impossible choices before, but never like this. Over the next 6 hours, the orbital bombardment continued. The Vorthak burned the solar power stations, the water treatment plants, and the communication towers. They left the residential areas untouched but cut off everything the humans needed to survive. Kiwu moved from position to position, watching helplessly as his home burned. Every few hours, Thulmek would broadcast another message. 6 hours remaining, 3 hours remaining, 1 hour remaining. With 30 minutes left on the deadline, Kiwu made his decision. The elementary school was burning. A Vorthak strike had hit the building accidentally, and 15 children were trapped inside. The adult supervisors were trying to reach them, but the fire was too intense. Kiwu could see everything from his hidden position. The children were on the 2nd floor crying for help. The adults could not get through the flames. He could also see the Vorthak landing ships moving toward the school. They were not trying to help. They were positioning to capture anyone who came to rescue the children. Kiwu had 2 choices: stay hidden and let the children die, or reveal his position to save them. There was no choice at all. Kiwu burst from his hiding place, running toward the burning school. His rifle was slung across his back as he crashed through the emergency exit. The smoke was thick and black, but he knew every building in the colony. He found the children huddled in a classroom, scared but alive. "Follow me," he shouted over the crackling flames. "Stay close and do not let go of each other." Kiwu led them through the smoke-filled hallways to a window facing away from the Vorthak landing ships. He broke the glass and helped each child climb down to safety. The last child was just reaching the ground when Kiwu heard the heavy footsteps behind him. "Human sniper, you are surrounded." Kiwu turned to face 12 Vorthak soldiers in full combat armor. Their energy rifles were pointed at his chest. "Ghost 7, the squad leader said. "High Commander Thulmek wants to meet you personally." Kiwu looked out the window. The children were running toward the safe zones. Hana and several other adults were helping them get away. At least they were safe. He raised his hands slowly. "I surrender." The Vorthak soldiers moved carefully, knowing Kiwu's reputation. They took his rifle and his sidearm. They bound his hands with energy restraints that would burn him if he tried to escape. As they led him toward their landing ship, Kiwu could see colonists watching from doorways and windows. Some were crying. Others looked angry. Administrator Songmin activated the colony-wide comm system. His voice reached every building and shelter. "Citizens, Ghost 7 has been captured. The bombardment has stopped. Medical teams begin treating the wounded. Engineers start damage assessment. Inside the Vorthak transport, Kiwoo sat quietly as they lifted off. Through the small window, he could see his home getting smaller below. The fires were still burning, but his people were alive. High Commander Thul Mek was waiting on the flagship. The large alien studied Kiwoo with his bright yellow eyes. "So you are the famous Ghost 7. You look smaller than I expected." Kiwoo said nothing. "3 years you have hunted my soldiers, over 200 dead. Do you have anything to say?" Kiwoo looked up at the alien commander. "I was protecting my people. You were trying to enslave them." Thulmek laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping metal. "Protect them? Look what your protection cost them. Half their colony is burned. Their crops are destroyed. Their infrastructure is ruined. But they are alive. For now." Thulmek walked closer. "I am going to make an example of you, human. Every species in this sector will see what happens to those who oppose the Vorthak Empire." Kiwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "Every species will see, including other humans." Thulmek's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means you made a mistake, alien. Humans do not forget, and they do not forgive." The High Commander struck Kiwoo across the face. "We will see how brave you are during your execution." As the Ayo guards dragged Kiwoo to the detention cells, he thought about Hana and the colonists. They were safe for now. The message about his capture would reach Earth in 3 weeks. After that, everything would change. The Vorthak thought they had won by taking him alive. They were about to learn they had made the worst mistake of their lives. Admiral Dong-hyun Kim was reviewing supply reports in his office on Mars Command Station when the emergency message arrived. The red priority alert made his coffee cup rattle on his desk. He opened the message and felt his blood turn cold. The due. First thing he saw was grainy video footage from Kepler 442b. Burning buildings, civilians running for shelter, children crying as adults carried them to safety. Then he read the text report from Colony Administrator Song Min. Ghost 7 captured. Colony infrastructure destroyed. Vorthak forces demanding complete surrender. Dong-hyun had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 30 years. He had fought pirates, alien raiders, and resource wars. But he had never seen anything like this deliberate targeting of civilian infrastructure. He was still reading the report when his aide rushed in. "Admiral, you need to see this. The Vorthak are broadcasting something on all frequencies." The holographic display activated, showing the bridge of a Vorthak warship. A tall alien in decorated armor stood in the center, speaking in accented but clear human language. "I am High Commander Thulmek of the Vorthak 3rd Fleet. For 3 years, your terrorist sniper has murdered my soldiers and disrupted legitimate military operations. Today, that ends." The camera moved to show Kiwoo Park chained between 2 guards. His face was bruised and his uniform torn, but his eyes were still defiant. "This is your Ghost 7, Thulmek continued. "Watch carefully as we demonstrate the price of opposing the Vorthak Empire." What followed was the most brutal thing Dong-hyun had ever witnessed. The Vorthak commander tortured Kiwoo slowly, methodically, making sure every human settlement in the sector would receive the transmission. Kiwoo never screamed, even when they used energy weapons to burn his skin, even when they broke his fingers one by one. He stared directly into the camera with steady eyes, as if he was trying to send a message to everyone watching. The execution took 2 hours. When it was over, Thulmek addressed the camera again. "Let this be a lesson to all humans. Resist the Vorthak Empire, and this is your fate. Submit peacefully, and you will be allowed to live as servants." The transmission ended. Dong-hyun's office was silent except for the humming of electronics. His aide cleared his throat carefully. "Sir, should I prepare a response to the Vorthak commander?" Dong-hyun stood up slowly. His hands were shaking with rage. "Get me President Ji-ho Lim on the priority channel. Also contact every fleet commander in the system. We are going to war." "Sir, the Galactic Council has strict rules about—" "The Galactic Council can go to hell," Dong-hyun interrupted. The Vorthak just declared war on every human in space. 3 hours later, President Jiho Lim addressed the United Earth Assembly. The massive hall was packed with representatives from every human, world and colony. The mood was dark and angry. "Fellow citizens," Jiho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Today we witnessed something that cannot be tolerated. The deliberate torture and murder of a human soldier who died protecting innocent civilians. The holographic displays around the chamber showed images from Kepler 442b, the burned farms, the damaged buildings, the frightened families. The Vorthak Empire has shown us that they consider human life worthless. They target our civilians. They torture our defenders. They broadcast their cruelty to terrorize our people." Representative Eugene Park stood up in the assembly. She was Kai Wu's younger sister, serving as a fleet intelligence officer before winning election to represent the outer colonies. "Mr. President, what response do you recommend?" Jiho looked directly at her. He knew her loss was personal, but her voice was steady and professional. "I recommend we withdraw from all galactic warfare conventions when dealing with the Vorthak Empire. They do not follow the rules. We will not be bound by them either." A murmur ran through the assembly. This was unprecedented in human space policy. "Furthermore," Jiho continued, "I recommend we authorize the formation of the Human Expeditionary Force, a military unit tasked with one mission: the complete destruction of Vorthak military capacity in this sector." The vote was unanimous. Every representative from every world voted for war. Admiral Dong Hyun was placed in overall command of the operation. His first decision was to contact Captain Min-Soo Jang, Kiwoo's former commanding officer. Min-Soo was leading a patrol squadron near the Centauri system when the message reached him. He had served with Kiwoo for 5 years, trained him in advanced sniper tactics, and considered him like a younger brother. "Admiral, I volunteer to lead the expeditionary force," Min-Soo said without hesitation. "Kiwoo was my responsibility. This is personal." "Approved, Captain. How many ships will you need?" Min-Soo was quiet for a moment, calculating. "All of them, sir. Every warship we can spare. This will not be a small operation." "Explain." "The Vorthak think they can terrorize us into submission. We need to show them that attacking human civilians brings consequences they cannot imagine. We need to hit them so hard that every alien species in the galaxy understands. Humans protect their own." Admiral Dong Hyun smiled grimly. "How long do you need to prepare?" 6 months to build the ships and train the crews. The Vorthak Empire has 12 systems under their control. We will need specialized units for each target. You have whatever resources you need, Captain. Across human space, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Shipyards that normally built civilian transport switched to military production. Mining colonies increased metal extraction by 300%. Every human world contributed, ships, supplies, or personnel. Dr. Hana Cho, who had survived the attack on Kepler 442b, volunteered to serve as chief medical officer for the expedition. When Captain Min-Soo asked her why, her answer was simple. "Kiwoo died protecting us. The least I can do is help make his death count for something." Colonel So Young Kwan was chosen to lead the newly formed Ghost Battalion. She had studied Kiwoo's tactics for years and understood how to apply individual sniper techniques to large-scale operations. "We are not just soldiers," she told her troops during training. "We are Ghost 7's legacy. Every Vorthak who dies by our hands dies because they chose to torture a man who saved children." The massive construction project took exactly 6 months. 200 warships purpose-built for assault operations. 50,000 Marines trained in tactics the galaxy had never seen humans use. Support ships carrying enough supplies to fight for years without resupply. As the Human Expeditionary Force prepared to depart Earth orbit, Captain Min-Soo stood on the bridge of his flagship. The ship was named Ghost 7 in honor of his fallen friend. "Communications open a channel to all ships in the fleet." "Channel open, sir." Min-Soo looked out at the massive formation of human warships, the largest military force in human history, built for one purpose. "This is Captain Min-Soo Jang to all ships. In 6 hours we depart for Vorthak space. Our mission is simple: complete destruction of their military capacity. They wanted to send us a message about the price of resistance. We are going to send them one about the price of murdering our people." He paused, thinking about Kiwu's defiant stare during his execution. Ghost 7 died to save 15 children. Today we fight to make sure his sacrifice was not in vain. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. The human expeditionary force disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with them humanity's promise of revenge. 3 weeks later, they would arrive at the edge of Vorthak territory and begin teaching the alien empire what humans really meant by protecting their own. High Commander Thulmek had made one critical error in judgment. He thought killing Kiwu Park would break human resistance. Instead, he had given humanity a reason to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of when someone pushed too far. The human expeditionary force dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Xerion system like a steel storm. 200 warships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons powered and shields raised. Captain Minsu Jiang stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical displays update with enemy positions. Intelligence reports had been correct. High Commander Thulmek was here with most of his remaining fleet, defending the Vorthak military depot on Xerion Prime. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the Vorthak commander," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." Thulmek's ugly face appeared on the main screen. His yellow eyes seemed surprised to see so many human ships. "Captain Jiang, I assume?" "I did not expect humans to respond so quickly to the death of one terrorist." Minsu kept his no expression calm. "High Commander Thulmek, I have come to discuss your surrender." Thulmek laughed harshly. "Surrender? You brought an impressive fleet, human, but I have defenses you cannot imagine. This system is heavily fortified." "I can see that," Minsu replied. 43 warships, orbital defense platforms, and ground-based missile systems. Very impressive. "Then, you understand why you should withdraw before I destroy your entire fleet." Minsu smiled coldly. "Actually, I was just confirming our target list. Colonel Quan, execute Phase 1. On the screen, Thulmek looked confused. Phase 1 of what? The first sign something was wrong came from the Vorthak sensors. Every civilian communication satellite in the system went dark simultaneously. Then the trade route beacons stopped transmitting. Finally, the emergency broadcast system fell silent. Colonel So-Young Kwan's Ghost Battalion had infiltrated Xerion system 3 days earlier, using captured Vorthak transport codes. While Minsu's fleet was jumping into the system, her teams were systematically destroying every piece of civilian communication equipment they could find. "Sir," a Vorthak technician reported to Thulmek, "we have lost all contact with our civilian population. Someone has cut every communication link to the outside galaxy." Thulmek stared at the tactical display. His military communications were still working, but his people could not call for help or evacuate non-combatants. "This violates every rule of civilized warfare," he transmitted to the human fleet. Minsu's voice came back cold and clear. "You violated those rules when you tortured Master Sergeant Kiwu Park to death on a galaxy-wide broadcast. Consider this your education in human warfare doctrine." Lieutenant Commander Eugene Park, Kiwu's sister, activated the psychological warfare systems. Every Vorthak frequency in the system suddenly carried the same transmission. Footage of Kiwu's execution, followed by footage of the massive human fleet. The message was simple and brutal. "This is what happens when you murder our people. Every Vorthak in this system will pay the price." "Sir," the Vorthak communications officer said, his voice shaking, "they are broadcasting the execution footage to our own people. Our civilians are panicking." Thulmek felt a chill run through his body. The humans were not just attacking military targets. They were conducting psychological warfare against his entire population. On the human flagship, Commander Tae-Min Lee was coordinating the engineering assault. His teams had studied Vorthak infrastructure for 6 months, learning every weakness in their systems. "Captain, we have identified the primary power relays for their defense grid. Recommend surgical strikes on the following coordinates." Minsu looked at the target list. The attacks would disable military defenses without harming civilian areas. It was more precise than what the Vorthak had done to Kepler 442b. Approved. All ships, execute Phase 2. The human fleet moved like a precision instrument. Each ship had specific targets, calculated to maximize military damage while minimizing civilian casualties. It was the opposite of what Thulmek had done during his siege. Plasma bolts and missile salvos struck the Vorthak defense platforms with devastating accuracy. Within 30 minutes, half of the alien military installations were destroyed or disabled. "Sir, our outer defense grid is gone," a Vorthak officer reported. "They are targeting our supply depots and communication centers." "Return fire," Thulmek ordered. "All ships, attack formation." The Vorthak fleet moved to engage the humans directly. It was what Minsu had been waiting for. "Ghost Battalion, you are clear for Phase 3. Colonel So-Young's teams had been studying the Vorthak fleet for hours, identifying the command ships and key personnel. As the alien vessels moved into attack position, human infiltrators activated pre-placed charges on 12 different ships. The explosions were perfectly timed. Not enough to destroy the Vorthak vessels, but enough to disable their command and control systems. Suddenly, the alien fleet was operating without coordination or communication between ships. "Sir, we have lost contact with half our captains," a Vorthak technician reported. "Someone sabotaged our command networks." Thulmek stared in horror as his organized fleet dissolved into individual ships, fighting desperately without support. The humans had turned his strength into weakness. How did they get people onto our ships? "Unknown, sir. Our security reported no intrusions." On the human flagship, Lieutenant Commander Eugene Park was monitoring Vorthak communications. Her brother's death had taught her to be patient and precise, just like he had been. "Captain, I am reading panic transmissions from their civilian population. They are requesting emergency evacuation." Minsu nodded. "Open a channel to all Vorthak. Civilian frequencies." When the channel was open, he spoke in the careful tone of someone delivering an ultimatum. "Citizens of Zerion Prime, this is Captain Minsu Jang of the Human Expeditionary Force. You are not our targets. Remain in your homes, and you will not be harmed. Our fight is with your military, not with innocent families." He paused, making sure his next words were clear. "However, any attempt to provide aid or support to Vorthak military forces will be considered an act of war. Choose wisely." The message had its intended effect. Across Zerion Prime, civilian workers abandoned their posts at military facilities. Cargo ships stopped delivering supplies to warships. The Vorthak military found itself completely cut off from civilian support. "Sir," Commander Taemin reported, "their industrial capacity is dropping to zero. No new weapons, no replacement parts, no fuel deliveries." Minsu watched the tactical display as the Vorthak fleet grew more desperate. Without supply lines or communication networks, they were fighting blind and running low on resources. "Captain," Colonel So-Young's voice came over the comm. "Ghost Battalion has secured the orbital mining platform. We found something interesting in their computer systems. Report. Complete records of every raid on human settlements for the past 5 years. Names, dates, casualty reports. They kept detailed records of everyone they killed." Minsu felt his jaw tighten. "How many settlements?" 47 colonies attacked. Over 12,000 human civilians killed or enslaved. The bridge of the human flagship went silent. Everyone knew they were looking at the largest systematic massacre of humans in galactic history. "Send those records to Earth Command," Minsu ordered. "Make sure every human world receives copies." "Yes, sir." "Also, sir, I found High Commander Thulmek's personal log. He was planning to attack 6 more human colonies after Kepler 442b. He wanted to use Kaiwu's execution to terrorize them into surrendering." Minsu looked at the image of Zerion Prime on his screen. Millions of Vorthak civilians lived on that world. They probably had no idea what their military was doing to human settlements, but their leaders did. Their commanders had planned to murder thousands more innocent humans. "All ships, prepare for Phase 4. Target the military command complex on the surface. Avoid all civilian areas." The bombardment was precise and devastating. The Vorthak military headquarters, Weapons factories and fleet support facilities were reduced to rubble in less than an hour. The civilian cities were untouched. When the smoke cleared, High Commander Thulmek found himself with 12 badly damaged ships and no support infrastructure. His fleet was trapped in a system with no way to communicate with the outside galaxy and no way to resupply. "Captain Zhang," he transmitted. "Desperately, I request terms for surrender." Minsu considered the request carefully. Kiwu had died protecting children. The Vorthak commander had died broadcasting his torture to terrorize other humans. "High Commander, you will surrender unconditionally. Your ships will be disarmed and your crews taken prisoner. You personally will be transferred to human custody to face trial for war crimes. And if I refuse?" Minsu's voice was calm and final. "Then you will share the fate you gave to Master Sergeant Kiwu Park. But unlike you, we will not broadcast your death to terrorize your people." Thulmek looked around his damaged bridge. His officers were watching him, waiting for his decision. They all knew the humans had them completely outmatched. "I surrender." As Vorthak ships began powering down their weapons, Colonel So Young activated the Ghost Battalion communication network. "All teams, this is Phase 4 complete. Ghost 7 has been avenged." The message spread through the human fleet. They had won the first battle, captured the architect of Kiwu's death, and done it without becoming the monsters their enemy had been. But this was only the beginning. 11 more Vorthak systems waited, and the human expeditionary force had just shown the galaxy what happened when someone pushed humanity too far. The news of Zerion Prime's fall spread through Vorthak space like wildfire. In 3 days, the humans had defeated the Empire's most experienced commander and captured an entire star system. Other alien species were watching carefully, wondering if the newcomers from Earth were truly as dangerous as they appeared. Captain Minsu Zhang stood in the briefing room of his flagship, studying star charts with his senior officers. 6 months ago, these same maps had shown 12 Vorthak systems controlling this entire sector. Now 5 of them belonged to humanity. "Intelligence reports from our captured prisoners," Lieutenant Commander Eugene Park said, activating a holographic display. "The Vorthak High Council has authorized emergency military powers. They are calling up reserve fleets and conscripting civilian ships." Commander Taemin Lee pointed to several marked systems on the map. "They are also evacuating their leadership to fortified positions. The remaining commanders are learning from Thulmek's mistakes." Colonel So Young Kwan entered the briefing room, still wearing her combat armor from the latest Ghost Battalion operation. "Sir, we just finished interrogating the Vorthak officers from their supply depot. They gave us something interesting." She activated another display showing shipping routes and resource flows. "The Vorthak Empire depends entirely on centralized logistics. All their military supplies flow through 3 major hub systems. If we cut those routes, their remaining fleets cannot sustain operations." Minsu studied the supply map carefully. It was elegant in its simplicity but also revealed a critical weakness. How heavily defended are these hub systems? "Heavily," Colonel So Young admitted. "Each one has a full battle fleet and extensive orbital defenses. But sir, I do not think we need to attack them directly." She highlighted dozens of smaller systems connected to the main hubs. "These are mining colonies, industrial worlds, and shipping waypoints. Much lighter defenses, but absolutely essential for maintaining the supply flow." Commander Taiman smiled, as he understood the plan. "We cut the arteries instead of attacking the heart." "Exactly. The Ghost Battalion has identified 47 target systems that feed into their logistics network. Small raids, surgical strikes, disable their infrastructure without causing massive casualties." Minsu nodded approvingly. "How long would it take to coordinate simultaneous attacks on all 47 targets?" 2 weeks, sir. We split the fleet into smaller task forces, hit everything at once, then withdraw before they can respond. Approved. Begin preparations. Immediately. The human expeditionary force had grown significantly since the victory at Zerion Prime. Word of their success had reached human colonies throughout the galaxy, and volunteers were arriving daily. Former merchant captains brought their ships and crews. Retired military officers came out of retirement. Even civilian engineers and doctors volunteered to serve. Dr. Hana Cho was now running the largest mobile medical facility in human space, treating wounded from both sides of the conflict. Her hospital ship had saved thousands of lives, including many Vorthak prisoners who expected to be executed. "Captain," she said during one of their regular briefings, "our prisoner interviews are revealing something disturbing. Many of these Vorthak soldiers had no idea their leadership was systematically targeting human civilians." Minsu frowned. "Explain." "The common soldiers were told they were fighting human military terrorists. They were not shown the broadcasts of colony raids or civilian massacres. Their own leadership was lying to them about what this war was really about." This information troubled Minsu. He had been assuming all Vorthak military personnel were willing participants in the genocide of human settlements. "Doctor, what do you recommend?" "We need to be careful about how we conduct these raids. Many of the soldiers we are fighting are not war criminals, just people following orders from leaders who lied to them." Colonel So Young entered the medical bay as they were speaking. "Captain, Ghost Battalion is ready for deployment. All 47. Target systems have been scouted and infiltrated. Any civilian populations at risk?" "Minimal, sir. Most of these are industrial facilities with small worker populations. We can disable the infrastructure without harming non-combatants." Minsu made his decision. "Execute the operation. But I want minimal casualties on both sides. Our goal is to end this war, not to become the monsters we are fighting against." The coordinated attack began at exactly 0800 hours across 47 star systems. Human task forces appeared simultaneously at mining facilities, shipping depots, communication relays, and manufacturing centers throughout Vorthak space. The attacks were precisely planned and brutally effective. Ghost Battalion teams had spent weeks studying each target, identifying exactly which systems to disable to cause maximum disruption with minimal loss of life. At the Korvac mining station, Commander Young Ho Pak's task force destroyed the ore, processing equipment and transportation systems, but left the life support and residential areas completely untouched. The Vorthak workers found themselves stranded but unharmed. At the Nexus communication hub, Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Ji-moon's infiltration teams simply shut down the main transmitters and destroyed the control systems. The hub went dark. But no, one was injured. Across the target zone, the pattern repeated. Human forces struck with surgical precision, crippling the Vorthak war machine while carefully avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. The results were immediate and devastating for the Vorthak military. Within 72 hours, supply convoys throughout their remaining territory began running out of fuel. Weapons factories could not receive raw materials. Communication between fleet commanders broke down. High Admiral Sung Ho Bae, who had taken overall strategic command of the human operation, monitored the results from his command ship. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "Vorthak military communications are in complete chaos. Their remaining fleet commanders cannot coordinate with each other or with their supply bases." "What about civilian populations?" "Largely unaffected, sir. Our casualty estimates show less than 300 Vorthak military deaths across all 47 operations. Civilian casualties are essentially zero." Sung Ho nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly the kind of warfare humanity needed to show the galaxy. Precise, effective, and morally superior to their enemies' methods. But the Vorthak High Council was not ready to surrender. Cut off from their normal supply lines, they began implementing desperate measures. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Yujin reported during the next intelligence briefing, "we are receiving reports that Vorthak commanders are seizing civilian resources to maintain their military operations. They are taking food, fuel, and equipment from their own colonies." "Are they harming their own people?" "Yes, sir. Some colonies are reporting forced labor and resource confiscation. The Vorthak military is turning on its own civilian population to continue fighting us." This news troubled the entire human command staff. They had wanted to avoid harming innocent Vorthak civilians, but their enemies' leaders were willing to sacrifice their own people to continue the war. Captain Minsu called an emergency meeting with all senior commanders. "We have a problem. Our strategy of targeting military infrastructure is working, but the Vorthak response is hurting their own civilians." "Sir," Colonel So Young said, Ghost Battalion is receiving communication requests from Vorthak civilian leaders. They are asking for our protection from their own military. Minsu stared at the reports. The situation was becoming more complex than anyone had anticipated. What kind of protection are they requesting? Safe passage for evacuations, medical assistance, and in some cases, direct intervention to stop their military from seizing civilian resources. Commander Taemin looked uncomfortable. Captain, if we start protecting Vorthak civilians from their own government, we become responsible for governing their territory. And if we do not, Dr. Hana said quietly, innocent people will suffer because of our military strategy. High Admiral Sung Ho studied the tactical displays. There is another consideration. Every Vorthak civilian we protect is one less person their military can exploit for resources. It actually strengthens our strategic position. Minsu made his decision. We will provide humanitarian assistance to any civilian population that requests it, but we make it clear that we are liberating them from Vorthak military oppression, not conquering their worlds. The new policy changed the nature of the conflict dramatically. Human forces began establishing temporary protectorates around Vorthak, civilian populations. They brought medical supplies, food, and protection from military exploitation. The response from ordinary Vorthak citizens was overwhelming. Many had lived under military rule for generations, never knowing that their leaders were systematically murdering civilians of other species. When Dr. Hana's medical teams began treating Vorthak children injured by their own military's resource seizures, the images spread throughout the galaxy. Here were humans, recently victims of Vorthak genocide, providing medical care to the children of their enemies. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Yujin reported, we are receiving surrender requests from individual Vorthak fleet commanders. Not the High Council, but middle-ranking officers who want to end the fighting. How many? 17 ships so far, sir. Their commanders say they were never told about the attacks on human civilians. When they learned the truth, they decided they could not continue fighting for leaders who lied to them. The defections created a cascade effect throughout the remaining Vorthak military. Soldiers who had believed they were fighting terrorists learned they had been serving war criminals. Many chose to surrender rather than continue supporting a leadership that exploited their own people. Within 2 months, the Vorthak Empire had effectively collapsed. The High Council controlled only their core system and a handful of loyal fleets. The rest of their territory was either under human protection or in open rebellion against military rule. But the war was not over yet. The remaining Vorthak leadership, cornered and desperate, was preparing for one final battle. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning to make their last stand at Vorthak Prime, the Empire's capital world. Sir, Colonel So Young reported during the final planning session, our scouts confirm that the remaining Vorthak fleet has fortified Vorthak Prime with everything they have left. 63 warships, orbital defense platforms, and ground-based weapons systems. What about civilian populations on the planet? 12 million Vorthak civilians, sir. The military leadership is using them as human shields, claiming that any attack on the planet will result in massive civilian casualties. Minsu felt a familiar chill. This was the same situation Kiwu had faced on Kepler 442b. Innocent lives, threatened by military leaders willing to sacrifice anyone to achieve their goals. Recommendations? High Admiral Sung Ho spoke first. We could siege the system, cut off all supplies, and wait for them to surrender. But that could take months, and civilians would suffer. Commander Taemin had a different idea. We could offer the civilian population evacuation to neutral worlds. Remove the human shields from the equation. The Vorthak leadership will never allow civilian evacuations, Dr. Hana pointed out. They need those people as leverage. Colonel, So Young smiled grimly. Then we do not ask for permission. Ghost Battalion specializes in impossible extractions. Give us 2 weeks and we can evacuate the civilian population without the military leadership ever knowing what happened. Minsu looked around the room at his officers. 6 months ago, they had been planning to avenge one man's death. Now they We're planning to save 12 million innocent lives while ending a war that had threatened every human in the galaxy. Colonel Kwan, begin planning the civilian evacuation. High Admiral Bay, prepare the fleet for the final assault on Vorthak. Prime? Commander Lee, coordinate with our Vorthak defector allies for intelligence on the defense systems. As the meeting ended, Min-Su remained in the briefing room staring at the image of Vorthak Prime. Somewhere on that world, the architects of Kiwu's death were preparing for their last battle. Soon, Ghost 7 would finally be avenged. But, more importantly, the war that began with one man's sacrifice to save 15 children would end with humanity saving millions of innocent lives. Kiwu had taught them that true strength came from protecting those who could not protect themselves. Now his lesson would determine the fate of an entire star system. The evacuation of Vorthak Prime began in absolute secrecy. For 2 weeks, Ghost Battalion teams infiltrated the planet, using captured transport codes and civilian identification documents. They moved through cities and towns, making contact with local leaders and explaining the situation. Colonel So-Young Kwan stood in the underground safe house beneath the capital city, addressing a gathering of Vorthak civilian representatives. The room was crowded with ordinary citizens who had learned the truth about their military leadership. The human fleet will attack in 72 hours, she explained through a translation device. We can evacuate your families to neutral worlds where you will be safe, but we need your cooperation. An elderly Vorthak female raised her hand. Why are you helping us? Our military killed thousands of your people. So-Young paused, thinking of Kiwu Park dying to save human children. Because our friend taught us that protecting innocent lives is more important than revenge. We will not become the monsters we are fighting against. The evacuation proceeded in small groups over 3 days. Human transport ships, disguised as cargo vessels, landed at remote locations and loaded civilian passengers. The Vorthak military leadership, focused on preparing their defenses, never noticed that their population was quietly disappearing. Dr. Hana Cho coordinated the medical screening of evacuees aboard the hospital ships. Many Vorthak civilians were malnourished or injured from military resource seizures. Her teams worked around the clock to provide care. Doctor, one of her nurses said, we have a problem. Some of these families are asking to stay and fight alongside us against their own military. Hana looked up from her patient charts. What do you mean? They want to help us liberate their world. They say their military has oppressed them for decades and this is their chance for freedom. This was an unexpected development. Hana contacted Captain Min-Su immediately. Captain, we have Vorthak civilians volunteering to serve as guides and intelligence sources for the final assault. What are your orders? Min-Su considered carefully. Accept volunteers for non-combat roles only. Intelligence, translation, medical assistance. But I will not arm civilians and put them in battle. On the bridge of his flagship, Min-Su watched the final preparations for the assault on Vorthak Prime. The evacuation had been more successful than anyone hoped. Over 9 million civilians had been safely removed from the planet, leaving only military personnel and a few thousand civilians who chose to remain in protected bunkers. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Eugene Park reported, all evacuation transports have cleared the system. Civilian casualty risk is now minimal. Fleet status: 230 ships ready for assault, sir. Our Vorthak defector allies have provided detailed intelligence on the defense systems. High Admiral Sung Ho Bei activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is the final battle. Our objective is the surrender of the remaining Vorthak, leadership and the end of this war. Remember, we fight to protect innocent lives, not to seek revenge. The assault began at dawn, Vorthak prime time. The human fleet moved in coordinated formations, targeting military installations with surgical precision. The remaining Vorthak defenders fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Commander Tae-Min Lee's engineering teams had studied the planet's defense grid for weeks. They knew exactly which systems to disable to collapse the entire network without causing massive destruction. Sir, orbital defense platforms are down, he reported. Ground-based missile systems are offline. Enemy fleet is trapped in low orbit. The Space battle lasted only 4 hours. The Vorthak ships, cut off from ground support and facing overwhelming numbers, began surrendering one by one. Their crews had learned that the humans treated prisoners with dignity and medical care, but the final confrontation was still ahead. The Vorthak High Council had barricaded themselves in the planetary command complex, along with the last loyal military units. Colonel So-young's Ghost Battalion surrounded the facility, but they faced a difficult problem. The remaining Vorthak leaders were threatening to execute human prisoners they had taken during earlier battles. "Captain," So-young reported, "we have confirmed 12 human prisoners inside the command complex. The Vorthak leadership is demanding safe passage off-planet in exchange for their release." Minsu felt a familiar anger. This was exactly what Thulmek had done at Kepler 442b, using innocent lives as leverage. The difference was that this time, humanity had the numbers and resources to save everyone. "Colonel, do you have a plan?" "Yes, sir. Give me 30 minutes. The Ghost Battalion had spent months perfecting infiltration techniques based on Kiwu's individual tactics. Now they applied those methods on a massive scale, with 12 teams moving simultaneously through the command complex. Major Hyojin Kim led the prisoner rescue team through the lower levels of the building. Her soldiers moved like shadows, avoiding detection while mapping every corridor and security checkpoint. "Ghost 7, this is Rescue Team Alpha," she whispered into her comm. "We have visual on the prisoners, 12 humans all alive, held in the detention level." "Copy, Alpha. Stand by for coordinated assault." Lieutenant Commander Eugene Park was monitoring Vorthak communications from orbit. Her technical teams had cracked their security codes weeks ago, giving the humans complete awareness of enemy plans. "Sir, the Vorthak leadership is preparing to execute the prisoners in 10 minutes. They think it will force us to negotiate." Minsu made his decision. "All teams, execute immediately." The assault was flawless. Ghost Battalion teams struck from 12 different directions simultaneously, overwhelming the Vorthak defenses before they could react. Major Hyojin's team reached the prisoners while Colonel So-young's troops captured the command center. The Vorthak High Council found themselves surrounded by human soldiers before they could carry out their threat. Their last desperate gambit had failed. The leader of the High Council, a scarred veteran named Gorthak, stared at Captain Minsu with hatred in his yellow eyes. "You have won, human. But this victory will cost you. Other species will see what you are, Kappa."